Studies of the brain show that if you practice meditation, mindfulness, or prayer,
Mhm.
like 15 to 20 minutes a day, at least 4 days a week, that's going to keep your reactiveness at a minimum.
There's no balance. If a relationship is supposed to be give and take, but a toxic relationship, it's one-sided.
When we know we're doing good, then we can feel better about ourselves. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. Today, the topic is Toxicity Unveiled, Healing and Thriving in Divorce and Marriage, and even Friendship. And we are with Jenny Alexander, who's the author of Breaking Free from Toxicity, and she is a relationship recovery advocate. Welcome, Jenny. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Awesome. I'm so glad to meet you. I'm really excited about this topic, actually.
Oh, great. I am too.
Yeah, I do a ton of work with people, with couples, men in particular who want to save their marriage, and also with people getting divorced. And toxicity is the common thread with all the people that I work with. And to have an expert on the show, wonderful.
Excellent. It's a win-win.
Absolutely. So the first question I always ask my guests is, how did your heart lead you to become a relationship recovery advocate? You've written several books. By the way, Jenny's written a bunch of books, and we're going to list them in the notes. But how did your heart lead you to do this work?
Well, strangely enough, I've always liked to write. But then shortly after my divorce, about 11 years ago, I had a dream to start writing books to help other people with relationship issues. I was reading a Henry Cloud and John Townsend book, and that's when the thought just kind of dropped into me. As I was recovering from divorce, I'm like, hey, I want to write books to help people just like they're doing. Um,
Sweet.
and then I started writing on medium.com last summer. And anyway, and then many of those articles turned into books. And so, I'm passionate about the topics I've written about because I've lived them.
Yeah, you have. You're divorced and remarried, and I assume thriving in that relationship.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's a night and day different.
Sweet. Yeah, no, I've been there myself. I am also divorced and remarried almost 24 years now.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny because even though in the first marriage, even though I got rid of her toxicity when I divorced her, it didn't go away.
What?
There's my stuff.
Right.
Like when you're getting divorced, it's all their fault. They're narcissists. They're so awful. Thank God I'm getting away from them. I wasn't always like that. I'm exaggerating in the divorce.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, I had a pretty quick divorce. I had a coach who talked me through that stuff I was just mentioning.
Okay.
That stuff going on. But what's funny is you get through it, and then you think, then you meet the man or woman of your dreams, and you think, oh, everything is going to be so different. And what happens? Your own stuff starts coming up again, and you find yourself, recreating not the same problems, but similar flavor.
Right.
It's like it's all a big learning experience.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about toxicity. Theirs and ours. We were saying before the show started, I was mentioning that out there in the great world of social media, there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. And actually, a lot of the work that I do with men to help them save their marriages is to teach them how to stop being toxic men and start being nurturing servant leaders in their marriages,
Right.
to know what it means to be a man, right?
Yeah.
The toxic masculinity comes out of confusion about what it means to be a man. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about how you define toxicity and how it shows up in the different areas of life in divorce, marriage, and even friendship.
Yeah. I would say toxicity is any type of relationship that is unhealthy, that makes you feel bad, that drains your energy and is unequal. There's no balance. If a relationship is supposed to be give and take, but a toxic relationship, it's one-sided.
Mhm.
And so those are the big things I would think.
And what are some of the behaviors that might funnel into that relationship?
Well, a big one is gossip. I mean, and we all gossip, I guess, from we
Did
don't
I tell you about the last person I interviewed?
no.
Oh, I'm not going to
Oh, okay.
because I don't gossip.
No, that's right. Well, that's right. Excellent. But yeah, like when you're in a toxic relationship, gossip just naturally seems to come out, and there's a lot of drama. And just like if you were to have a complaint about that person and about their behavior, something they did that offended you or upset you, and you tried to talk to them, they'd turn it around on you and say it was your fault. They'd get mad at you. And yeah, so those are some signs that a relationship is not healthy. And you just feel bad when you're around them. They don't uplift you, they compete with you. Um,
Yeah, those are subtle. Can I share some of the obvious ones?
yeah, yeah,
I think some of the really obvious ones is it I find that in a lot of relationships, there's permission to be loud and yell and scream. Uh,
right.
that is rarely positive or effective. You know,
No, no,
a lot of people talk about, oh, well, there's great makeup sex afterwards. It's like, well, but even that stops after a while. You know,
right.
there's when people get into a dynamic with each other where one or both is got that level of anger where they're going to win and the other person's going to lose. There's
Yeah,
no in that context, there's almost no opportunity for a positive outcome.
right. That's true.
I've had couples where one person goes, well, blah, 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 and the other one goes, oh yeah, you're right. And then the person who went blah 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 says, I know I'm right. And let me tell you something. Instead of seeing that they've been acknowledged, they're so on a roll with their anger and their blame that they don't even see that there was like a surrender and an opportunity there. When you were in that space, that's the obvious stuff.
Right.
I like your examples. It sounded like not just turning things that you say around on you, but you could probably even throw in there gaslighting and
Yes,
denial.
absolutely. Yeah. And another big one is a lack of responsibility. They're not gonna ever say they're wrong, which is kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah, I was reading this book, The Other Half of the Church, which is all about the right side of the brain.
Okay.
And it was a criticism of religion in general, the criticism of religion in general, but the context here was specifically Christianity, is that churches are they have systems and the way they do things and they create small groups, but they've sort of forgotten the right side of the brain, which is all about creativity and emotion and connection. Uh,
Right.
basically, the point the author made is that any time that we go negative, that we feel hurt or angry, we have slipped into a form of narcissism.
Hmm.
Right? So you don't have to be diagnosed as a narcissist.
No, that's
And
true.
it makes sense, right? Because if I feel hurt, it's like, oh, it's all about me. Not
That's
that we don't have a right to feel hurt.
that's true.
But when that hurt is expressed as blame,
Yeah.
yeah.
Never thought of it that way before, but it's true.
I read that. I never thought of it that way either. I was just like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
that blew my mind. So that we see
Yeah.
that a lot, not only in organizations, but in relationships. All right, so
Yes.
you're in a friendship or a divorce or a marriage, and you're seeing or experiencing some form of toxicity. What do you do?
Um, I would not. I would suggest not reacting, like, not like flipping out or like you really need in those type of situations before you end any type of relationship. You really need to process it and think about it and make sure it's like truly toxic and truly not the best for you. Like you don't just want to be like second guessing all your relationships. You want to make sure that it's really because I know when I was in even in, when I was in my marriage, it took me like it was bad. like there's infidelity and everything, I could have left a lot longer, or a lot sooner, I should say. But I had to take the time to really figure it out, and even when the writing was on the wall, I had to make sure.
Mm.
So
Wow, that sounds like it was really painful.
it was.
Sounds like
Yeah.
you were very committed also. I'm guessing you're the kind of person who takes their vows and their commitments very seriously.
Yeah, plus I didn't, who wants to be divorced? But I really didn't want to be divorced. And, you know, I hung in there as long as I could until it was just like totally unbearable and unhealthy. And it's like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, actually I think that's kind of really important point there. I think we have a lot of listeners who take their commitments very seriously and they feel that tension between their own pain
Mhm.
and the abuse that they're experiencing and
Yeah,
hoping that it's going to change.
right, right. Um, One thing that helped me is one of my counselors had said the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Is which behavior?
So the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Ah.
So
Yeah, but at the same time, I like to be an optimist.
yeah, of course.
I like to be an optimist, and the truth is that when you're in a relationship with someone who is behaving in a way that's toxic consistently,
Yeah,
the pattern usually is that they're deflecting, as you said, any sense of responsibility, and so they have no motivation for changing
right.
because the problem is who? It's you
Of course.
in their mind.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
And so, let's say that you're someone who is in a marriage. Let's walk this all the way through. Let's say you're someone who's in a marriage and you're in a relationship like this, and you've been hanging in there, and you've got children with this person.
Right.
And so, you not only do you take your commitment really seriously, but family is a super high value for you.
Yeah.
Put your kids through that. How do you know when enough is enough?
Ugh, that's really hard because it's individual. Like it's different for everybody. I guess when you see no evidence of them wanting to change, when you just feel terrible like all the time, it's affecting your health. You can't sleep, you're losing weight,
Yeah.
you can't concentrate, and you're just like emotionally dead. But that's how I felt. I felt emotionally dead.
And at that point, there's going to be the impact on the children. I mean,
Right.
if you can't charge your own battery,
Yeah,
you
that's
can't.
true.
How do you show up for them?
Right. That's true.
Plus, you start to wonder, are these the kind of behaviors that I want modeled for my children?
Right. That's true. Yeah, when you have children, I had a stepdaughter at the time, so of course I was considerate of her, but yeah, it was difficult. It definitely is more difficult when you have children in the picture.
So you make the decision.
Yeah.
I've hung in here as long as I can. By the way, for me, um, I was 5 years into my first marriage. I realized something was really, really wrong,
Right.
and but I thought, like yourself, family super high value. I take my commitment seriously. I'm going to do everything I can to make this work.
Yeah.
Um, and 5 years after that, like 10 years later,
Right.
I finally threw in the towel.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, why didn't I see how foolish that was? But
Yeah.
and at the same time, I think when you have those kind of values, you have to give it your best shot.
You do. Yeah, because you don't want to be regretful. You don't want to be down the road and think, "Oh, could I have made it work?" Because
And you know what? The funny thing is, I'm sure this happens to you too. Every now and then, I think maybe there was something I missed, like some sliver. All right.
right.
So you get to that point and you decide to get divorced. How do you deflect toxicity in the divorce process? Because now you've gone from guerrilla warfare to open Armageddon style warfare in the divorce process. Like the process itself encourages, if you're in litigation anyway, to some extent encourages even more
Right.
ramping up.
Well, thankfully, I don't have too much experience on that end. The divorce itself was kind of smooth as far as divorces go, but
Cool.
yeah, if you do have a situation where there's Like, I don't have experience in that much, but make sure you have support. I think that would be the biggest thing, whether it's your family, friends, or, a support group like divorce care. You need support in that kind of situation even more, I would think.
Mhm. And I'm curious, how much of your own toxicity did you experience in the divorce process, and how did you manage it?
I don't even know how to answer that. Um, I don't know. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm curious. Well, let me reframe it even.
Okay.
Instead of my own experience of the divorce process was that I had all kinds of frustration and
Right.
and fear about the financial future of my children and
Right.
myself, and I had all kinds of negative emotion, we'll call it,
Okay. Yeah.
and that could have expressed itself with far more frequency as blame and anger and criticism and snarkiness and sarcasm.
Right.
But actually, because I did get help, I was able to minimize it with the help that I
Mhm.
got.
Yeah.
I'm
And
curious what your experience of that was in this
yeah.
process.
Well, I had a lot of counseling, and I'm sure that helped.
Mhm.
And my church at the time was also pretty supportive.
Nice.
And I remember my pastor praying for me that I would not get bitter. And I don't believe that I did anyway. I could have, at least I could have been way more bitter. And just having family and, normal people around me, because I felt when I left that marriage, like everyone, how is everyone so normal now?
Yeah.
Such an abnormality.
It sounds like you have a pretty solid prayer life too.
I try.
Yeah, well, that's actually studies of the brain show that if you practice meditation, mindfulness, or prayer,
Mhm.
like 15 to 20 minutes a day, at least 4 days a week, that's going to keep your reactiveness at a minimum. So,
Right,
I
right.
mean, even like just throwing out whether there's a God listening to you or not,
Yes,
simple act of doing it,
yes,
of praying, meditating, or practicing mindfulness it shrinks the part of your brain that's reactive and grows the part that's not.
right. Yeah, I know I journal sorry.
Yeah, yeah, but go ahead. You journaled.
Yeah, I journaled a lot, and I'm sure that really helped get my
Nice.
emotions on paper, and
All right, now let's move on to the third group. So we've done marriage and divorce. How about even friendship? How do we manage toxicity even in
yeah.
friendship?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, friendships can get so toxic that you need to end them, and, um, I definitely have been through that, and again, that's something that I had to really think about and, like, is this really the right like, why am I so unsettled with these relationships that I've had, like, practically my whole life? Like,
Yeah.
it was after my divorce, I started to gain self-respect. I started to realize, "Hey, these friendships aren't necessarily right for me."
Yeah.
And I realized we didn't have much in common anymore, and it was just very unhealthy, and so again, I had to take time and really, like, think about it. Like, I couldn't just, throw away, like, almost, throw away decades of friendship.
Mm.
But then I started to realize, we didn't have anything in common, and they were one-sided, etc. And I realized I had a choice in who I spent time with. I didn't have to spend time with people that didn't serve me. I mean, we're in relationships to be served. It's a two-way thing, right?
Yes.
But yeah.
But it needs to be two-way.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And in some ways it maybe never was. So,
So it sounds like some of those friendships you felt like you were doing all the giving,
yeah.
and it sounds like maybe you weren't as respected as you could be in some of those.
No, definitely not. No. No. So, yeah, and so was thinking around like shortly after my divorce like, "Oh, wait a minute. Are these good friends?" But it was years later that I actually made a change in those relationships too. So,
Yeah. Well, that makes sense though. I mean, you removed yourself from a really toxic primary relationship,
mhm.
and that declaration, that stand, that change that you made has a ripple effect and
Does.
it starts to move through all the other areas of your life.
Yep, it does.
And this is probably the answer is probably not that different than when I asked about the marriage, but I'm curious. What are some of the qualities of friendship that are toxic that we want to look out for?
Yeah. Um, Actually, in my book, I list 20, 20 that
Right.
I could come up with from my own experience. But lack of responsibility, um, when you confront them with a particular behavior, they'll be upset and turn it on you.
Uh-huh.
Or, drama, gossip, about each other's friends. And I'm just going to ignore the phone. um,
We don't
uh,
hear it.
oh, good. Um, and what are some other ones? Like being untruthful, like you don't know if you can trust them, and they only ever tell you what you want to hear or what they think you want to hear.
Oh, that's really good
Yeah.
because most people that I know love those friendships,
Yes. Right.
the mutual admiration friendships.
Right.
But a real friendship, a real friend will call you out.
They will. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my best friend every now and then says stuff to me like, "Hey, you got to stop doing that. That's not going to help you.
Right.
You know, if what you would say you want is this, doing this that behavior in your life really isn't going to help you." And I
Yeah.
go, "Oh, it's kind of like a little tap on the head, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
important and important to be able to receive it.
Right. For sure.
Kudos to you for having people like that in your life.
Yes.
So tell us more about the book and how people can find it.
Yeah, so the book, actually, I have it right here. This is only my proof copy, but this is what it looks like.
It's a little fuzzy because of the
Oh, yeah, that's right.
there that way there. Bring it up that way. Yeah, not too high, a little lower. With in front of your face, even though we love your face. There it is. We got it. Breaking free
Oh,
from toxicity. Nice cover. A
thank you.
relationship evaluation guide.
That's right. So this is a guide. It's not like a big fat novel. It's like 60 pages,
Uh huh.
and I can read you the contents, the table, like just the titles of each chapter. There's only 10.
Mm-hmm.
I can go through some of them. Like I start off by describing what friendship is,
Mm-hmm.
because there's different categories and different definitions of friendship. I talk about how the Bible views friendship,
Uh huh.
and that might be interesting to anyone. um, I talk about what happens when a friendship becomes toxic.
Oh, wait. I want to know, how does the Bible describe friendship?
Oh, well, I went to the book of Proverbs, and I just did a short study, but I looked up the first three instances of the word friends in the Bible.
So just, for those of you who are listening, the book of Proverbs covers at least three religions. Right? It's Judaism,
Yeah,
Muslim faith includes the book of Proverbs, and Christianity. So they like
right.
this is some really widespread old knowledge here. And what are some of the
That's
stuff that you
right.
found?
Well, here, the very first verse with the word, I mean, there's also the word friend and friendship, but I chose friends. So the first verse on friendship or friends is Proverbs 12:26. And it
Uh-huh.
might be familiar to some of your listeners, but it says, "The righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray."
Mm-hmm.
And then here's another one. Proverbs 14:20 says, "His own neighbor hates the poor man, but the rich has many friends."
Yeah.
And the
And a lot of that lines up with there's a lot of popular stuff out there in social media that we are only as strong as the five people we spend the most time with.
Yes, I've heard that.
And
Yes,
that's like that comes right out of that proverb, those proverbs
that's
you just
right.
read.
That's right. And the third verse that I talk about is Proverbs 16:28, and it says, "A perverse man sows strife, and a whisper separates the best of friends."
Oh, that's right where we started. Gossip.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like it. I like
and
it. Well,
and I do talk about what our role in the toxic friendships are, because it takes two, so we play a part too.
what? We have responsibility. We're not just victims.
I know. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Oh no, very quickly. What's our role?
Well, I suggest a few things in here. Like our role, like maybe we hang on to these friendships because we need to feel needed. Maybe we are afraid of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're desperate for love and we hang on to these relationships, even if they aren't loving, they might appear that way. And so I don't know.
Sometimes no, sometimes behaviors feel like love because maybe we experienced them in our childhood with, in our home of origin.
Yeah.
So we associate that particular toxicity with love, even if it isn't really loving.
Right.
Or maybe it was loving when we were kids, but the way that it's being delivered to us now isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And this is a book for evaluating friendships.
Yes. Yeah. And another one I have is low self-esteem. I definitely had low self-esteem. I started to gain self-esteem and self-respect after my marriage, which is then when I realized my friendship circle wasn't necessarily the best. But yeah, if you have low self-esteem, you're going to attract not necessarily people that are good for you.
And I've heard the best way to build self-esteem is to do esteemable acts.
Yeah.
Not that we're good people by doing esteemable acts, but that
Yes.
when we know we're doing good, then we can feel better about ourselves.
Right.
So that's something somebody told me that worked really well for me. He said, go out and do something good for someone else and don't tell anyone.
Right.
And that was like the hardest thing in the world because I wanted everyone to tell me what a great guy I was.
Right.
For a while, it became a habit of just doing
Yeah.
things for other people and not telling anyone about it.
Yeah.
And I could just sort of cherish, oh, look who I'm becoming.
Yeah.
That was what was sweet about that. How can people find the book and how can people find you, Jenny Alexander?
Yes. Well, the book is on Amazon,
Hmm?
Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, or wherever you are in the world. So just go there. You can look up my name and you can look up the title here. Or you can go to my website and it will link you to the Amazon.
And your website is?
It's very easy to remember, JennyEAlexander.com.
JennyEAlexander.com. And for those of you who aren't fast writers, all of that will be in the notes of the podcast and video blog. And you'll be able to find Jenny through us. Jenny, the question I ask everyone at the end of the show is, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Yes. Well, one of the legacies I want to leave is that of an overcomer. I don't want people, I guess I want to encourage people to feel like they can overcome whatever situation they find themselves in. I don't want to be a victim. I want to be, a victor. I don't want to be an overcomer. And that's the legacy I want to leave. And I've left some of that legacy in my books.
Victors, not victims. I've heard that somewhere before. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been really good. I think you've helped a lot of people today.
I'm glad. I hope so.